you guys have been following me on my social media platforms, you've seen that I've been rocking some swag, right? Some GTG swag, and that is because I have an amazing sponsor, 208 Printing. Now, if you want something done for your brand, you have a team, anything that you need to get out there, you want some shirts made, some swag of your own, make sure to go to madeby208.com and check it out. They'll get you taken care of. Now, guys, when I lived in Brazil, getting into the podcast now, I learned the importance of soccer, right? How important soccer was to that country. So it was always interesting to me when I met people in Brazil who competed at a high level in sports outside of soccer, such as basketball, volleyball, or in this case for today, handball. So our guest is joining us today, and I'm super excited to have you guys meet him because he's speaking in English, which is not his native language. So it's awesome to see someone come out of their comfort zone and share their story with us. And he competed at the highest level of handball in Brazil. You don't want to miss this episode of The Game Time Guru. So,
What time is it? Game time! Woo!
if you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is The Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up and let's go. What's up, everyone? Welcome out to the Game Time Guru podcast. I am your host, Shane Larson. Excited to be here with you for yet another awesome episode of the show. We want to give a shout out to all of our listeners as we have broken the 50,000 download mark. We've been in 79 different countries, and we have continued to grow this Game Time Guru brand and podcast from the ground up, and we really appreciate everybody who has taken part. Now, if you haven't yet left me a review on the podcast platform for iTunes or Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast. It's super helpful for the growth of the show. Now, when I tell you guys that we have gone into 79 different countries, one of those countries that has listeners from the show is Brazil. And the reason for that probably is because I have many friends from Brazil because I lived there for 2 years. And because of those friends that I met down there, this is how we got today's guest on the show, who is going to be joining us from Brazil, and he's going to be speaking in English. So we're not going to be speaking in Portuguese. We're going to be speaking in English, but this is a super amazing first-time opportunity here on the show where we're having someone from Brazil talk about their experience with us. And I would like to introduce Lucio Martins. Lucio, thanks so much for joining the show.
Hi, Shane. I appreciate the opportunity, and I can tell you that I'm very excited about this interview.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to have you with us. Now, Lucio, he played the sport of handball in Brazil. Now, listen, to anybody who's familiar with the sport of handball, you might be familiar with a different type of handball, especially if you're here in the United States. So, Lucio, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about the difference between handball in Brazil compared to handball in the United States.
Okay. First of all, handball in Brazil and in Europe is team sports. So we're talking about 6 players and 1 goalie. And the team plays against another team with the same structure. And we have a 60 minutes game divided by 2 times of about 30 minutes each. And handball in the United States is an individual sport. And in the United States, the handball that I play is called handball team. So I had opportunity to play against the handball team from the United States twice in my professional career, and we have lucky and we won the 2 games. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so as you guys know on the show, I learn a lot from this show, just like the listeners on the show learn, because I'm learning from our guests the same way you guys are. And so that's why I love this show and this platform, because we have this opportunity to learn from everyone. So you guys heard it here, the differences between handball in Brazil compared to handball in the United States. Now, Lucio played professionally in Brazil for quite some time. So, Lucio, I'd like to know, when did you become interested in the sport of handball? Like, when did you start playing, and why did you start playing?
as you know, Brazil is a huge country, and I am from the north, from a state called Amazonas, in the middle of the rainforest. And being a huge country, we have different, you know, cultures in the same country. So, Amazonas has a very interesting culture in terms of producing handball players to the country. And I started when I was 12 years old. Um, I was a big kid, um, and taller than the average. And as everybody in Brazil loves soccer, I also tried soccer. But due to the fact that being a taller kid, uh, I started playing in the school, and my coach said, "Wow, you have a lot of skills, and you have a, a big right arm. So why don't you try play these sports?" And from the beginning, I started making things happen uh, very quickly. From the school, I went um, to the one of the best teams in the states, and then I started playing some national competitions. From there, I went to the national team as a youth, and wow, uh, I forgot about soccer and put all my energy in this fantastic sports.
You know, it's super cool to hear that. And for the listeners out there, you might have heard me talk about this before, but when I lived in Brazil, I lived on the complete opposite side of the country than where Lucio was from. I lived at the south in Santa Catarina, and you know, but the whole country of Brazil, the whole entire country is well known for their love of the sport of futebol, which is, you know, futebol is soccer here in the United States. Obviously, they have a massive love for that sport. So it's kind of cool to hear from somebody who, you know, took their talents to a different sport, even though the country, the religion, everything is basically just football. You know, it's soccer, and it's cool to hear that how that worked and how that transition happened. And you know, the listeners still want to probably know: do you follow soccer? Do you follow football, Lucio? Do you like any teams that are there, or do you not even care about soccer?
Uh, Au contraire, my friend, I love soccer. I
Okay.
love, and I've been living in São Paulo since 1992. I came to this city thanks to the sports, thanks to the handball. So here I finished uh, my college. I finished my master degree, and wow, but always having contact with soccer or football, but only as you know, a follower, a torcedor, you know,
A fan, yeah,
and
a fan.
yeah, a fan, yeah, yeah, and I have two kids, two boys. The oldest one is 10 years old, and he's completely in love with soccer. He plays for one of the best team in the country as a youth, and I would say that my uh, heart beats for Corinthians.
Ah.
Yeah, for Corinthians.
All right, Corintiano, então.
Yeah.
Eu sou gremista. I lived in the
Ah,
South, and so I like Grêmio, who is from Porto Alegre. And so
yes.
that's awesome to hear that you still have a little bit of a tie to football. But, you know, going back to the sport of handball, you started at a young age competing at a high level, which ultimately led you to playing at the professional level. I'm curious. We want to know more about this sport, Lucio. You know, tell us about the pace of the game and what type of training is required to compete at handball at an elite level, right? Is there a lot of cardio that's required? Is there any weight training that is required? Like, what are the skill sets required to compete at an elite level like you did for so long?
Okay, so let um, handball is team sports, and we play it in a court 40 meters length for 20 meters wide. And so, as I said, we have uh, two times of 30 minutes each, and it's a very dynamic sport. Maybe something in the same pace as basketball, so we're talking about 6 players in the line and a goalie playing dynamically for 30 minutes in a row with a lot of substitutions all the time. It doesn't require to ask for the referee to make some to run some substitutions during the game. So it's very dynamic, and it's a sport for big players. So for example, I am 190 meter, and at the time that I was playing in the highest level, I was 102 kilos weight. So in order to move quickly on the court, you have to have some physical qualities in a high level per se, like speed, strength, power, and a huge cardio conditioning. So it's sports with a lot of contact, because there is no limits in terms of how many falls you can do it. Of course, there are some yellow cards, some red card, and some 2 minutes out of the game if you run some falls in very bad way to another player. So definitely is a sport where you really need to have a high level of conditioning. Yeah.
So to me, it sounds like there's quite a bit of training that's required. Now, just so my listeners can have more of an understanding as well, one thing that I've noticed here in the United States, what we typically go through is we see that our best athletes typically play basketball. Then we have our better athletes that play football. And then we have other athletes that play baseball and soccer. But in Brazil, typically like the guys who are playing soccer are smaller. But what you're saying, Lucio, is that bigger framed individuals, taller, heavier guys, bulkier guys are typically going to be playing the sport of handball team. And it requires a lot. And it's interesting you were mentioning that you have penalties throughout the game, but there's not a limit on the amount of penalties one can have. And so it gets pretty physical. So that's interesting to me. Did you ever suffer any injuries playing the game of handball?
Oh, unfortunately, yes. Especially when you play in a high level, you are pretty much exposed to injuries. So the most common injuries in this sport, like uh, handball, are ACL injuries, ankle sprains, some shoulder issues, because there are a lot of contacts, a change of directions. You have to jump as high as you can, and then as soon as you went to the ground, you have to change direction. So it's a very dynamic sport, and I went through, let me see, 2 ACL surgeries, both knees. One serious injury on my right shoulder, and I can count how many times I had my ankle sprained. So yeah, it's a real tough sport. Yeah.
Man, so this is the thing is I've been watching some highlights on handball in Brazil ever since I had, known that I was going to be interviewing you, and it seems pretty fast paced. It's similar to that of basketball and hockey. That's what it reminds me of, is
Yep.
basketball and hockey as far as the pace of the game and the potential risk for injury that you go through. as an athlete. Now, Lucio, you started playing professionally at what age? What age did you start actually being at the professional level, so that we can kind of have an understanding of how that process worked when you decided to go all in on handball and play professionally? How old were you?
Okay, so but when I say professionally, I am not saying that I was having money from the sports. Even playing in the highest level is possible, because here in Brazil we don't have uh, a good structure which allows high level players, live uh, their lives only play handball.
Right.
So I would say it wasn't recreational, far from that. But for example, comparing with Europe, where a player can earn around 30,000 euros per month, which is a nice amount of money. But I started playing in a high level around 17. Yeah. This was the first time that to I went to the national team, uh, and I had the opportunity to play against different countries, traveling throughout Europe, uh, and having a fantastic experience thanks to this sport. And I play in the highest level possible from 16, 17 until my 30 years old. Yeah, yeah, a lot of time
Man, so
on the
about
court.
14 years competing at the highest level. And I'd like you guys to take note of this. Lucio was playing what they call professionally, competing at the highest level, but some countries are structured differently economically than others, right? And so for Brazil, what Lucio was just saying is that it wasn't structured in a way that they could, make a livable wage playing handball. Whereas in Europe, there is a livable wage for playing handball. And, here in the United States, some of these like smaller sports, if you will, can still make some money. So just keep in mind, Lucio's playing because he was playing the sport, competing at the highest level, truly because he loved the game, and he was playing it and competing because he loved the game and loved the experiences. Now, you mentioned you got to travel across Europe. I want to talk about that. Sports are awesome, Lucio, because they do provide you with opportunities that you might not get everywhere else. And you mentioned you traveled to Europe. I'm curious, what was your favorite place that you've ever traveled to?
Wow. My first trip to Europe was a long time ago, 1991. So I spent almost 4 months in Europe. We started in Italy. Then we went um, to Germany, Sweden, um, Denmark, Norway, and we finished this trip in Greece, which was the best place that, if I would say, I love to stay thanks to the sports. So Greece was the nicest place in this trip. After that, I traveled here in the south, Argentina, Uruguay. Oh yeah, I went to Cuba. Yeah, to play a Pan American championship was fantastic experience also. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So you got to go a lot of places. South America you traveled, but Europe you traveled. I mean, you got to go a lot of places. Who was the best team you've ever played in the 20 years you were competing at the highest level?
Wow. Let me see.
Tough
I would
question.
I would start with yes, because every single European team, national team, wow, they are fantastic because it is part of their culture. So when as you mentioned it before, people in Brazil, you are going to see a uma bola de futebol in everywhere. So in Europe, you are going to see kids play handball on the streets, squares everywhere, because it is part of the culture. Plus, they have this a different a different genetic, so they are taller than us. They are bigger than us. So when you start on sport very early, you probably will reach the highest levels possible. So I would say that there are three or four countries which are fantastic: France, Denmark, Norway, and Germany. I think these four countries are the best nowadays in the world. Yeah.
Super interesting to hear you mention genetics. I think that's a huge factor in sports as a whole, is the genetic makeup for certain people, like certain athletes. Your genetic code is going to be different. The way that LeBron James is genetically made up is a lot different than some of the other players around the country. So
Yeah.
genetics play a huge role in that. So here's the question for you. Do you guys have a specific rival? So I know in soccer and futebol, it's Argentina and Brazil. They hate each other. What about handball? Is there any sort of rival country that you guys have?
We usually say that every single opportunity that you have to beat an Argentinian, you have to do it. So for handball, it's not different, because the most important championship that we have, I would say tournament, is the Olympic Games. So for us in the American continent, including you guys, the easiest way to go directly to the Olympics is to win the Pan American Games. Only the gold medal will go to the Olympics. So because this, we consider the Argentinians nowadays our main rival. So unfortunately, last Pan Am Games, Brazil hadn't have a chance to play against Argentina in the finals, because we lost against Chile, which is a very interesting team, because they created a fantastic structure in Chile. They invited Spanish coach to go there and change the sports nationally. So they have been growing very fast, and we hadn't have opportunity to beat Argentina in the finals. So now we are going to play another tournament in Europe against Norway, South Korea, and Chile again, but only with two places in the Olympics. So this is another way to go to the Olympics. It's a pre-Olympic tournament, but one of the places is already for Norway, because they are a fantastic team. Yeah.
Wow. Super, super good information. Now, Lucio, with all of your experience inside the game of handball, what do you think it taught you in your regular life? Like the discipline, the hard work. Tell us about the skills that you've learned in your days competing in handball that you can translate into your regular life, whether that's at home in your relationships with your family, or at work with your coworkers. What are some of the things you've learned through sports that can relate to regular life?
First of all, I would like to point out that sports, high-level sports, can change someone's life. Okay, so for example, in my case, I I come from a family with a poor background, and living in the north, uh, I would say that if it was not from the handball, I would never be here trying to speak English with you and share a little a little about my experience traveling all around the world. Uh, I think you know that is the same in football also. Uh, so what I've learned from being a high level athlete, my mindset is different from the average in terms of uh, focus, in terms of uh, hard working. You know, the way that I work with uh, my 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 colleagues. Everything is different because we athletes are built uh, to to face challenge. You know, so from the beginning, when I was uh, studying my high school, during the college, I think my concentration, my focus, uh, my way that face challenge was different than everyone. So, and this is something that I've been trying to give as a gift for my children. So I have two boys. The oldest one is involved with judo, with water polo, and as I said, he loves soccer. So, and the youngest one is doing karate, judo also, and so here and there he plays soccer, but I think his soccer is not his first option. I think so, and I always say, especially for the oldest one, his name is Bernardo, 10 years old. He has some talent, but I always say, "Hey, son, listen. If you wanna succeed in sports, you have to work hard. You know, because there are three things that you really, really have to uh, have if you wanna, you know, achieve the high level sports. Number one, genetic. Number two, talent. And number three, hard work. So nowadays, I am a strength conditioning trainer. I work with uh, Olympic athletes, professional athletes from different sports, and I can see this mindset in all of them. So this is something that I really, really want to share with the kids because not saying that they are going to achieve uh, an Olympic game. I myself personally have never uh, went to an Olympic Games. I had opportunities, including 1996 in Atlanta. I was close to go. In 1999, we lost pen and gold medal from against Cuba. So that was my last chance to go to the Olympics. But I'm saying that sports can tailor uh, someone's mindset, making them better a better person for sure. So yeah, yeah.
I love that. I love that entire explanation because for the longest time, I always hated how people would call athletes dumb. They'd say that they're just dumb jocks who just care about sports, and I just absolutely hated it, which is a huge reason I brought up this podcast because I wanted to show people the real the traits that you can learn through sports. So like Lucio here, you know, he learned all these different things through his time playing sports. His family the same thing, and he's helping these younger people see that the hard work and the dedication that it takes, but that can help you in your regular life, all these things that it takes. I'm also currently reading a book called Relentless by the author Tim Grover, and he was a trainer for these elite athletes like Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant, and he talks about the hard work those guys put in. But it's one of those things you learn through sports. You learn how to dedicate yourself to something. You learn how to communicate with your teammates. You learn how to have discipline and do things when people aren't watching. And that's something that, it's cool to hear Lucio's story there as well. So, Lucio, is there anything else you'd like to share before we sign off on the podcast? Because this has been really cool learning from you.
Okay, thank you very much, my friend. I would like to mention that my wife is also a former handball player, because especially in Brazil, when we compare males and females, our female team is in a better position in the world than the male team, including in 2013, Brazil won the world championship. So we have also a very strong female team. Yeah, that's it. This is something very special for me when I talk about sports, because this is my passion. And I would say, if you wanna create a strong mindset with your kids, let them play sports. Let them learn from coach, from physical conditioning trainers involved in sports, not necessarily in the high level sports. I will give you an example. My kids, when I gave them opportunity to play some different sports, the number one thing that I did, I got to know the trainers first, and the reason why I have been allowing them to play different sports also is because they are going to choose in some. There will be a time that they are going to choose to make a choice, and they will. No matter which sports they choose, I will give my best to allow them an opportunity to grow inside the sports, because we are living in crazy times here in Brazil, in your country. People fighting each other, this kind of racism, and we also have racism in Brazil also. Yeah. So when think about the future, we as parents, we have to create an environment for them to achieve a strong mindset, to separate the bad and the good. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much for those words, Lucio. I appreciate that. Guys, that's super powerful coming from Lucio Martins over in Brazil. Talking about the mindset that sports can create and how important it is for our youth, our children, to have that strong mindset. So if your kids are, ever wanting to get into something, sports are a great avenue for them to learn this stuff. It teaches them a tough mindset, strong mindset, teaches them hard work and discipline. And like Lucio said, you don't have to play at the highest level to learn these things. There's a lot of skills that you can learn, especially with your mindset when you compete in sports. So once again, we want to say thank you, Lucio, for joining the show. And for anybody who has listened to this episode, friends and family of Lucio, please share it with your friends and family. Anybody who's listening here in the United States, I hope you took something from this in regards to the sport of handball and learned from Lucio's journey about the cool sport of handball and what he's learned throughout his entire life playing it. And if you guys would please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, that would help me out so much. And you guys know the drill. We'll talk to you next week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.